Hey guys, we're the LA Fakers, and we're back with another NFL Nitro episode. Today we will be reviewing the wild card, as well as giving our predictions for who's going to win in the divisional round. How you feeling, Jacobet 9?
Obviously it was playoffs. It was a lot of big games, showing who the good teams were and who the bad teams were. A lot of teams got found out. That's for sure.
Broncos. But yeah, that being
Chargers.
said, everyone that lost.
Yeah,
Let's
'cause
get into the actual video. If
Vikings.
you just want to jump to predictions, jump here. And yeah, let's get into it.
The first game of the wild card weekend was between the Houston Texans and the LA Chargers. The Texans ending up dominating the LA Chargers 32 points to 12. Starting with the Chargers, they actually did start really well. Their first drive, they amounted to 3 points, but they were cooking. Then they, I believe, picked off CJ Stroud and got another 3, and they were up 6-0. And I mean, the Texans were getting cooked, to be honest. It was not very good. CJ Stroud was not playing very well. Justin Herbert was lighting it up. They were playing really well. But then all of a sudden the Texans said F it, and started balling out. We'll get into that a bit later. But Justin Herbert, this loss is probably completely on him. He threw for 242 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions. 1 was taken for pick 6. There were a couple that were high balls that were underthrown. One of them hit a receiver and bobbled it straight into the cornerback, which I believe was Derek Stingley. It wasn't a good showing from Justin Herbert or his teammates at all. Rushing wise, J.K. Dobbins was the only one that was actually, he wasn't even doing all that much. He had 9 carries for 26 yards, and I mean, Gus Edwards had 7 carries for 22, and that's about it. They were just getting dominated offensively. But there was one bright spot, and it is the man, the lad, if you will, Lad McConkey, had himself a day, had one of maybe the best playoff performance by a rookie, at least wide receiver, one of the best. It has to be up there. 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. He absolutely destroyed the Texans, and he was the only attack that the Chargers had. The next person in receiving was Will Dissly, who had 16 yards, and as I mentioned, dropped or bobbled a catch that ended up being turned into an interception. And I mean, it was just not a good game at all offensively for the Chargers. They went up 6-0 like I mentioned, but CJ Stroud and the Texans figured it out. Damn. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. They're a young team. There's a lot left to be decided, though. They just went up for it. But I think this game started with Justin Herbert for sure. Moving on to the Texans, though, CJ Stroud didn't have a good start to the game at all. He did end up throwing pretty decently, though. He threw for 282 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Overall, he was fine. But, it wasn't really him that was doing everything, He wasn't the focus. It was Joe Mixon, when he's been on one of the best backs in the league. He had 25 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. He was definitely balling out there for sure. He was carrying the Texans to victory. I mean, yeah, the Chargers, which have one of the most consistent defenses, just could not stop him at all. Nico Collins also went off, though. Can't forget about that man. Really their only wide receiver, since Stephon and Tank Dell are injured. Nico had 122 yards and 1 touchdown. Definitely balled out for sure. But I mean, obviously, if you're the Chargers, this result was inexcusable. Obviously, I gotta give credit where credit's due, though. The Texans, they played one hell of a game. So, good job for the Texans. Now they have to go into KC and play the Kansas City Chiefs.
They're good, pretty much.
They lost.
I realize that. Yeah. But the next game, or the second game of the week, was the Baltimore Ravens, a divisional matchup, obviously. The Baltimore Ravens whooping the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson. It was a blowout from the very beginning. I mean, the Steelers got stopped on the first possession of the game, and then the Ravens, their first possession, had a 7-minute, 95-yard drive, which ended in a Bateman touchdown. I think just from there they just kept building. The Steelers were down 21-0 at halftime. Just an absolute blowout. The Steelers did get two 30-yard touchdowns in, the third quarter, but it was too late, and they lost 28-14. So let's start with the winning team. Lamar Jackson had a very solid day, especially for someone who people claim is a playoff baller. He played quite well. He put up 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then also added in 81 rushing yards, as we know he's capable of doing. The main catalyst of this window was, the new player on the block, the new man, Derrick Henry. That's why they picked him up for games like this. On 26 carries, he had 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, absolutely destroying the Steelers. Also had a crazy 44-yard touchdown run. Justin Hill was also solid in the receiving game, not so much in the ground game. But we'll go to the receivers. Isaiah Likely led the Ravens in receiving yards with 53 yards on 3 catches, but it was very balanced. Rashad Bateman had a touchdown, as mentioned earlier, and Mark Andrews had 27 yards on 2 catches. The Ravens defense got 4 sacks, and Russell Wilson looked uncomfortable for the most part. It wasn't a great game for Russell Wilson. We'll transition to him and the Steelers. He put up, his stats wise, it's nothing terrible. He was 20 for 29, 270 and 2 touchdowns. But he just couldn't really get it done, and the Steelers offense as a whole was just not up to par. I mean, they've never been the most flashiest offense, to be fair, and that being said, they were also passing for most of the game because they were down for most of the game. But in their run game, they had 11 carries as a team for only 29 rushing yards. When you're only putting 29 rushing yards in throughout the entire game, you're just not going to win. And the Baltimore Ravens put up over 10 times that. They put up 299 rushing yards. That's just a very extreme and crazy difference there. I feel like if you don't get your run game going, it affects the whole offense. It's well known that establishing a good run game opens up the pass game quite a bit. We'll talk about the receivers though. George Pickens had actually a very solid game. On 5 targets, he had 5 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. He was their best receiver for sure. Van Jefferson though did put up 2 touchdowns on 2 catches for 37 yards. I think it was a 30-yard touchdown earlier in the game, or in the third quarter. Mike Williams had a big catch, and Najee Harris didn't get many carries on the ground, but did put up 41 yards receiving on 3 catches. Overall, though, a very dominant Ravens win. I don't think it was all too surprising, though. We know how good the Baltimore Ravens are. And the Steelers, I believe, going into this game, had lost like 5 straight. They're fraudulent. We knew they were fraudulent. But an impressive win, and I can't wait. I'll save it, but the Ravens-Bills game is going to be a movie. We'll get into that in predictions.
Crazy.
Game of the week.
But you just mentioned the Bills. I think it's time to talk about them. Unfortunately, dominating my Broncos, 31 points to 7. As you guys know, I'm a big Broncos fan, and yeah, seeing the effort out there was not the best. I mean, I still loved what we did this season, but it just was not good when you're going up against just one of the best in the league in Josh Allen. It's not going to be pretty for you. Starting for the Broncos, Bo Nix Even though, you know, the stats aren't going to look amazing, but his receivers were dropping balls left, right, and center. There was at least 5 drop balls that would have got him like 50 more yards, you know. And, but he did end up throwing for 144 yards and a touchdown. He had a very solid game. He started the game extremely well, actually. He threw I think it was like a 60-yard bomb to Troy Franklin, the first ever touchdown in playoff history from a rookie to another rookie. I mean, it was amazing. But after that, it just fell apart completely. We didn't score a single point after that. You know, we'll just go to the rushing game. Actually, should mention real quick, Riley Dixon. Maybe he should be a QB1. He threw 1 for 1 for 15 yards on a fake punt that we converted. Obviously did not convert it into any points, but still pretty cool nonetheless that we managed to get that done. Damn. But moving on to rushing wise, Bo Nix for the 6th time this year. Yes, 6. He has been our leading rusher. I mean, you were just talking about how the Steelers, you know, the rushing game opens up the passing game. The Broncos have a massive hole at running back, and the rushing game is awful. It just is. Our next best rusher was Javonte Williams with 29 yards, and that was really it. No one else really did anything else. Yeah, just really disappointing rushing game. Colin Sutton had 5 receptions for 75 yards. He had a solid game for sure. Troy Franklin, as I mentioned, he had 2 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. He obviously had maybe his best game ever. But I mean, yeah, there just really wasn't anything going for the Broncos at all. They just got dominated in time of possession and stuff like that. It just was dominant for the Bills, and they obviously had a really good win. And transitioning over to them now. Josh Allen, he played a pretty solid game, I would say. He threw for 272 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. A very solid game from potentially the MVP. I mean, I'm not mad by it. He also added with 46 on the ground, so, you know, he had a really solid game overall. I mean, you can't really be too mad at that. But I think the guy that we need to kind of talk about for this game, who was just dominating us, was James Cook. You know, you mentioned him last episode. I believe you mentioned he had 16 touchdowns, which is tied for the most in Bills history. Well, I believe he broke that. He went for 23 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. He absolutely dominated us. It was not fun to watch. Just, yeah, he was just dominating left, right, and center. I was getting so pissed off, but he's a great player. You know, I was not aware of his game. I was not aware that he was so good. He's clearly built for the big moments, and you know, Josh Allen, he definitely doesn't have. It's not like it's just him on that offense. He's got a couple really nice players who help him as well. And James Cook is right there. He's his partner in crime. Just like Lamar has Derrick Henry, Josh Allen has James Cook, you know. And then the other kind of notable rusher for them was Ty Johnson with 9 carries for 44 yards. So overall, pretty decent. Curtis Samuel had 3 receptions for 68 yards, most of it coming off of 1 touchdown, mainly. The next receiver though was Khalil Shakir. He was very solid with 6 receptions for 60 yards. Dalton Kincaid got in there with 3 receptions for 47. Ty Johnson, the running back, had a kind of cracked touchdown, and he was there, one of their other than Curtis Samuel, he was the other touchdown grabber. He had 26 yards and a touchdown. Overall, it was just extremely solid. I mean, an extremely solid effort from the Bills all around. They're just such a well-rounded team. Yeah, obviously I'm disappointed, but you know, I'm also not. I was kind of expecting this. I was expecting a bit better, but I wasn't. You know. It wasn't shocking that this happened. Is all I'm trying to say. You know, all I'm gonna say to put it out there as my last thing is that John Elway in his first playoff game lost 31-7, the exact same score. So, it's not the end of the world. Is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, shout out to James Cook though. I do want to point out, going forward on that running back statement that we both said, every team that won, you'll see, except for the Commanders, in that tight game. But all other games, wow. That's bro. I just
Damn,
want to.
everyone's toxic.
All other games, the winning team though had a very good two elite running back who had a good performance. I'm just putting it out there. That being said, we are moving on to one of the best running backs. You could definitely argue the best running back in Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles, beating down on the Green Bay Packers 22-10. You just had the feel that the Eagles were going to be able to take this home from the first. By the time the first play was happening, because on the opening kickoff, Keyshawn Nixon fumbles it, and the Philadelphia Eagles recover. 3 plays later, and Jahan Dotson's in the end zone on an 11-yard reception. Starting like that's obviously awful. It was 10-0 at halftime, and Jordan Love had already thrown 2 picks by the first half. The Packers their offense could not get it going. We'll start with the Eagles. The Eagles' offense was solid. It wasn't perfect, but it was obviously enough in this game. Jalen Hurts, he played well enough. He played well. 13 for 21, 131 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and also put up over 30 rushing yards. But Saquon dominated, 25 carries for 119 yards. Kenneth Gainwell had a nice run in there too, finished with 3 for 14. Going to the receiver game though, we'll start with Dallas Goedert, because he had a very solid game, 4 for 47, 1 touchdown. I don't know if you saw that touchdown, but it was a damn good one. He stiff-armed the same player like 3 different times. It was a mean stiff-arm, great play. Devontae Smith was their leading receiver though, with 4 catches for 55 yards. He had a very solid game. AJ Brown only came out of there with 1 catch for 10 yards. And I'm sure, they're going to be looking for him more in the next game. But yeah, a little underwhelming, but in the end they got it done. Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell, and Zach Bond all finished with an interception. Jordan Love was just handing them away. Shout out to all those guys though. Yeah, Jordan Love, 20 for 33, 212 yards, no touchdowns passing, 3 interceptions. This is just one of the many stinkers we've had from QBs already this playoffs. Who were we talking about the other game? Was it the first game you were talking about one? It's this one, and there's also
Justin
Darnold
Herbert.
and Justin Herbert. The pressure definitely makes it tough. You see, guys' composure. Jordan Love's young and experienced at least. Just not a good performance by him. But Josh Jacobs, on the other hand, had a very solid game. 18 for 81 and a touchdown, plus 40 yards in the air receiving. But he had a 31-yard run at the start of the 4th that gave them life. I'm like, geez, it was a great run. I'll put it on screen. They ruled him down like inches from the end zone, but just really gave him life. And we know Josh Jacobs is one of the better running backs in the league. We know what he's capable of, but receiving wise, obviously no Christian Watson this week. Jaden Reed was 4 for 46, and their leading receiver. Next up is the guy who I labeled as stud last week, Dontavion Wicks, who had 2 catches for 39 yards on 6 targets. Was very disappointing. Not the performance I was expecting, to be honest, but yeah, underwhelming for sure. Tucker Kraft chucked in 26 receiving yards, and Emmanuel Wilson had 23 himself on 1 catch. Overall though, the Packers offense as a whole, aside from that one big run by Jacobs, it just couldn't really get it done. The Eagles defense was smothering them, making it really tough. And just Jordan Love has got to play better. You're not going to win games with quarterback play like that. But again, he's really young, so I'm sure, this could just be a step in his career. Great win for the Eagles, though. They play the Rams, so that'll be a good matchup. But damn, I don't know what to pick. Yeah, good win for the Eagles, though, keeping that season alive. Great work by probably the best running back in the league.
The next game was really the only competitive and by far the best game of the playoffs. This playoff wildcard weekend. It was between the Washington Commanders and the Buccaneers. And Washington managing to come up with the win, as I predicted, as I think everyone knew, but James O'Neill. Obviously, yeah, it came down to the wire, with the Washington Commanders managing to get the job done with the last second field goal via Zane Gonzalez.
Oh yeah.
Zane Gonzalez.
I thought you were gonna say thanks to the field goal post. Like you.
Well, starting with the home team, the Bucks, they played pretty decently. They were obviously in this game. There were a couple of lead changes for sure. The Bucks getting on top with a field goal to start, but then Washington getting back with a touchdown. And then, it was, by halftime it was 10-all, it was obviously it was a tough game. 10-all, I believe the Washington Commanders came out, they got the lead, and then the Bucks took the lead back. And eventually, obviously, it got to 20-all. And as I mentioned, the boot of Zane Gonzalez, maybe the man with the most OCD ever, managed to doink it off the field goal posts for the win. Bears fans mad for real. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about it. I know you're a closet Bears fan.
I'm not a Bears fan.
Yeah, okay. Getting into the stats, Baker, he had a solid game. Definitely not his best performance though. I feel like he had a bit to be desired. He threw for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions, so a very fine game out there for sure. Definitely probably not as bad as I said, but I'll get into the play, which was huge, like maybe the game-losing play, in fact. But Bucky Irving, he had a pretty solid game, especially for a rookie. He had 17 carries for 77 yards, and he's just been such an underrated rookie. He's just been cooking, for sure, and I felt like he had a pretty good game overall. Baker Mayfield also had 7 rushes for 23 yards. And that was about it for the Bucks. Rushing attack, there wasn't too much to say about it. It was just a gritty game overall. But obviously getting into receiving, it was Mike Evans. We kind of mentioned last episode, if you saw it, the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore kind of battle. I think Mike Evans won this one though. He had 7 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. He was definitely up for it, and he was cooking. He was doing what he does best, which is be a Hall of Fame receiver, and he was definitely cooking. But he had some help out there. Jalen McMillan and K. Dotton both had 2 receptions. McMillan with 41 yards and K. Dotton with 32. So overall, a pretty solid game from just the Bucks offense. But the play that just completely changed things around, I believe they were up by a touchdown. They managed to get a turnover on downs, on a goal line stand, by the way. I should go back a couple plays. The Commanders had a PI, there was like a pass interference or a defensive holding call, which put the ball on the 1, and the Commanders managed to get stuffed by the Bucks defense somehow, and then the Bucks, on an awful handoff, a miscue from Baker Mayfield and I believe it was Jalen McMillan, they lose the fumble, and then the Commanders manage to tie the game with a touchdown in the 4th quarter. Just terrible execution. The worst thing that can happen at that moment. It's just plays like this that really just win games and lose games. They obviously lost the momentum, and Washington managed to get the ball and score. Overall, though, it was a very solid game, but I still feel like the Bucks had a bit to be desired. They left a lot out there. That I feel like when we've seen them be so good, they are really up there. They're cooking for sure. Obviously, moving on to the Commanders now. Jaden Daniels, I'm pretty sure I said he just has that it factor. He has that clutch factor. He's a big time player, and he showed it. He played a really good game, especially for a rookie. He threw for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and was the team's rushing leader with 36 on the ground. I mean, he was absolutely cooking. They were, doing QB design runs and everything for him in the fourth quarter. They were just doing everything, and he was given back. He had some beautiful touchdowns as well. Just had an amazing game. Unfortunately, he is probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I wouldn't be complaining all that much.
I would.
You would
Rob
complain?
Bowers needs it. Pixie Award.
I mean,
It's supposed to be Rookie of the Year, not Quarterback Rookie of the Year.
moving on from that, Austin Eckler, baller. He had 8 carries for 27 yards. He didn't really do all that much, but I still think he was pretty solid. He was pretty solid overall.
Sucks. Oh.
Yeah,
He's not been a baller in like 4 years.
he's a baller. Certified baller. Receiving wise, Diami Brown, he was absolutely cooking. He had 5 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. He was just, he was cooking out there for sure. They weren't marking up on him, and he made him pay. Obviously, he's been pretty underrated for them. But then you also had Scary Terry, who had 7 receptions for 89 yards as well, and a touchdown. He's been balling out this year for them, as we know. And overall, just a very solid game. Offensively, from really both teams. They both played very solid. There's not too much to say about it. It was obviously the best game, though. It was the closest. It's not like they had any 200-yard rushes, but there was still big plays, from Jaden Daniels and Mike Evans and guys like that really did make this game interesting. But at the end of the day, it came down to Zane Gonzalez, who managed to kick a doink field goal. Overall, great win for the Commanders, and they now have to play the Lions. So good luck to them.
Now, with Monday Night Football, the final game of the week was the LA Rams decimating the 14-3 Minnesota Vikings. They were up 24-3 at halftime. The first drive. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
The Rams started off strong though, obviously. Their first drive was a 70-yard drive that ended in a Kyren Williams touchdown. There was some controversy early in the second quarter. There was a play that was deemed a fumble by Matt Stafford, which the Vikings took to the house, and then they got overturned. And it was a bit questionable, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really know what I would have called it, but yeah, they reversed the call. And then, another big play, Jared Verse, stud, potentially defensive rookie of the year, we'll have to wait and see, had a 57-yard fumble recovery, which was forced by Akello Witherspoon. Massive play. Matt Stafford put in a very fine performance, 9-15 for 27, 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kyren Williams, a very good running back, put up 16 for 76, as well as having 16 yards receiving and the 1 touchdown from the start of the game. First drive. Tyler Higbee led the team in receiving yards with 5 catches for 58 yards. Puka put up 44 on 5 catches. Cooper Kupp only had 1 catch, but it did go for 29. And the same can be said for DeMarcus Robinson, except it was only for 23. But, the real story of the game for the Rams was the defense. Obviously, that big play by Jared Verse. Kobe Durant had a pick. There was 9 team sacks by the Rams, so just getting after Darnold and, you know, transitioning to Darnold, it was not the finest day at all for him. Not as good as we've seen him play in this regular season. He was 25 for 40, put up 245 yards, did have 1 touchdown, but also had an interception and a fumble where he maybe held onto the ball a little too long, but overall, not the best performance at all for how he's been playing all season. And, you know, their run game was also struggling, with Aaron Jones only putting up 48 yards on 13 carries. Cam Akers did put up 39 on 5. But overall, just the Vikings offense couldn't get it done. You know, TJ Hawkinson had 64 yards receiving on 5 catches. Did have their 1 receiving touchdown. Justin Jefferson put up 58 yards receiving. Jalen Naylor 33. Jordan Addison a disappointing 29. Very disappointing loss for the Vikings. And, you know, there were already big questions with if they're going to keep Darnold and all that stuff about free agency. I think this just adds to it a lot, because it was not great. And yeah, I'm not sure they're going to want to keep him after that game. I think they're just going to be ready to give JJ McCarthy the keys. Great win for the Rams though, and they might be turning up at the perfect time. I will also put out the Rams beat them earlier in the season too, in the regular season, so maybe they have the Viking number. But yeah, the Rams are a scary team, and I would not want to play them for sure.
They're a big time team. They're big game players. They, you know, but they're a big game team. I feel like, you know, they can play as mid as they want in their regular season, but as soon as they manage to make the postseason, they switch it up. I feel like they've just cracked at times. It's insane.
I've seen them do it before for a Super Bowl.
Yes.
That being said, before we get into the predictions, what do we want to talk about? You know, Ohio State and Notre Dame are going to be playing in the national championship, and Ohio State put up a very great performance that I watched. I did not watch the Notre Dame game though, but I was pleasantly impressed by Ohio State against Texas, and Jack Sawyer called the game. Me personally, I have Ohio State winning the national championship. Do you agree?
I mean, yeah, I'm not the biggest college football guy, in all fairness. I don't actually know how good Notre Dame is, because from what I heard, Penn State was not playing. Penn State did not play very well. They should have just ran the ball. I do know Notre Dame have an insane running back though. So y'all gotta watch out for that for sure. I do got Ohio State though. They beat Oregon, they beat Texas, they beat Tennessee. I mean, they beat so many good teams. I am gonna go Ohio State, but also it would be very Ohio State-like to lose this game.
Okay. Well, that being said, you know, let's get into the predictions.
Yeah, our first prediction was that. Now it's the actual teams. None of this dicky playoffs. But the first game of the divisional round of playoffs, I should say, is the Houston Texans going into Kansas City, playing the Chiefs. You know, just another team that we've seen that, you know, that can destroy at home, but then they have to go into Kansas City. You know, I feel like the Dolphins are kind of a team that in recent years have tried that. Obviously the Bills have gone in, tried, failed. Ravens, the same thing, though that was in Baltimore. But I mean, there's been so many teams, and not many have come out on top. Only the Bengals have, really. Ultimately, give me, Tampa Bay, you know, that's a
Yeah.
But ultimately, give me the Chiefs. They've been the best team in the league. You know, I've been saying the Lions, but the Chiefs are definitely right there. It's a coin toss at this point of who I think the best team is. You know, something to note, I know it's kind of weird, but I believe the officiating crew that is officiating the Chiefs is like 6-0 in the playoffs. Like the Chiefs are 6-0 or something like that when they have them. So you
Pretty
know,
much any
you
official.
expect a couple calls. Yeah. Um. Obviously, you know, they sucked last game.
The Chiefs.
38-0. Yeah, they sucked. They
I,
lost 38-0.
I don't count
No.
it. They finished the season 15-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um. Obviously, you know, the Chiefs, I do expect to win. The Texans, I feel like the way that they have to win though is obviously relying on their guys. CJ Stroud didn't play all that amazingly. He definitely needs to improve. I mean, he played pretty decently though. But they definitely need to rely on their top guys and take advantage of the fact that, you know, I do think that potentially, I'm not saying that it is fully, but potentially having, you know, 2 weeks off could do something with the Chiefs. I mean, the, you know, Eagles and all that looked pretty good, and they all had like 1 week. You know, all the teams that did rest. The Bills, obviously, they also had basically a week off. But having 2 weeks off, you know, from really playing any football games could maybe have some um, implications to them. But ultimately, I do think that the Chiefs do end up winning, probably in a dominant fashion as well. I mean, Arrowhead is a scary place to play for sure. So, yeah, give me Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs as well. I do agree with your point about back-to-back buys. I feel like teams typically, you know, they start a bit rusty, but it's the Chiefs at home. I mean, I will say I was very impressed with Houston last week. You know, I feel like they played a lot better
For sure.
than the regular season. Their defense had a great game. Joe Mixon could have a nice one, but the Chiefs' defense is quite good. And yeah, the Chiefs are just Arrowhead's such a tough place to play. I think we're gonna see a big game from Patrick Mahomes, a couple of touchdowns, probably better than what we've seen throughout this regular season. I think, you know, we could get an Xavier Worthy touchdown. Travis Kelce's gonna have a solid game. Yeah, I think the way that the Texans would be able to keep this close and be able to win it is relying on Joe Mixon mainly, and then some Nico Collins obviously as well. Don Schultz is solid, but yeah, Joe Mixon I feel like their one chance to say in it. You know, former Bengal too. He has experience beating the Chiefs, but
That's true, he does.
yeah, I think they're gonna have to rely on him a lot, and if he plays poorly, if he can't get it going, then I think it's gonna be a blowout in Arrowhead. But the next game is the 1 seed in the NFC, the Detroit Lions at home, welcoming the Washington Commanders. And I am going to be picking the 1 seed yet again. I'm going to take the Lions here in Detroit. Obviously, they've been, as you said, they're right there with the Chiefs for the best team in the league. Both teams went 15-2. And the Commanders, man, they're solid, I guess. But that win was solid. It's just not enough to convince me at all, because the Bucks didn't play the perfect game. And it was tight. And as mentioned last week, you know, the Commanders are a really young team. We'll see if, you know, Daniels is able to embrace the environment, because playing in Detroit is, I feel like, a much bigger home field advantage than Tampa Bay is, to be honest. But yeah, I have to go Detroit here. And I am guessing that it's going to be a blowout, to be honest, a dominant performance. The Lions are going to be pouring it on early. You know, Dan Campbell isn't scared of, you know, going for it whenever it's close. They're going to be trying to get points on the board early and then just run away with it in the end. But yeah, give me the Detroit Lions in a blowout.
I mean, yeah, it'll most likely be a blowout. Obviously, I'm hoping it won't be.
Yeah.
The Detroit Lions are just cracked. They really are. And I mean, they desperately needed the bye, or you know, yeah, the bye. They obviously played their hearts out against Minnesota to get that bye. Why is everyone so toxic and topic? But yeah, the bye obviously they played their hearts out against Minnesota to earn it, and they desperately needed it. I mean, they obviously got Alexander Loney, who's been a weapon for them defensively, one of their more underrated players, and they absolutely cooked. Their defense went from like a top 15 at like the best to like top 5. Like they were absolutely destroying Minnesota. And I mean, yeah, Jaden Daniels, he's gonna find it very tough. I liked your, talking about the home field advantage. Detroit is becoming one of the toughest places to play. Definitely not impossible to win there, but it is pretty damn hard, and definitely a lot harder than Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is not that tough of a place to win, to be honest. It's, the home field advantage definitely isn't as much as Detroit's. But yeah, obviously, give me the Lions. I expect them to be. I think just having that week off will help them tremendously. I do really like the Commanders, though. Jaden Daniels has been on fire. It's just, do they have enough star power to win? Do they really match up well? I mean, they've got good players, but you really need a bunch of great players, and I don't know if they have that right now. And also just, the Lions, you got to think they obviously have a lot more playoff experience than the Commanders. Commanders only have a couple guys who have actually gone on playoff runs. And yeah, the Lions, obviously, they all have. So yeah, give me the Lions to win. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I just think it'll be maybe a 14-point win or something like that. But moving on, it is the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Rams, obviously in Philadelphia. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, as you brushed on, wasn't very good, but you didn't really mention the fact that he literally has just come back from like a concussion. So he hadn't played in a couple of weeks, and he did decently. And I do expect him to play a lot better, and I expect their wide receivers or Dallas got hurt to get the ball more. And obviously Saquon's a monster. He's really the reason why. The Eagles will probably win this. I don't know if literally anybody can stop him, to be honest. Maybe the Lions, maybe the Chiefs, maybe the Ravens. That's about it, I think, who could potentially keep him under 100 yards. The Rams, their defense balled out, but I don't know if they can stop. Saquon Barkley. It's just unfortunate, but I'm not going to count the Rams out. I think this will be a pretty close game, though. Just the way that Philadelphia play, they're kind of like the Chiefs in that aspect of they win, but they win close at times. I feel like they have had more blowouts this year, but just their style of play, I do feel like is pretty conservative, which causes for closer games. But ultimately, I do see them pulling it out. Obviously, the Rams, they played really nicely. I do expect them to be on fire. Matthew Stafford is one of the elite QBs when he's on. I mean, Puka's elite. Cooper Kupp's really nice. They've got some really nice players. I just don't know if they can go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles.
Well, me personally, I disagree. I think that the Rams are going to win this one. I do think it's going to end up being like a one-possession game down to the wire, down to the last couple of plays even. But, I mean, the Rams just played so good. I also agree, I don't think they're going to be able to stop Saquon at all. I think Saquon's going to have a solid game. Keep playing how he's been playing. Well, I don't know if they have to be honest. Like, the way the Rams just played against the Vikings, their offense, they had 24 points at halftime. Matt Stafford's just, as you said, when he's on, he's one of the best quarterbacks. He's also one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the league. He's been there, done that, has the recent Super Bowl to back that up. But I think he could have a very good day. I know the Eagles' defense is really good, but yeah, I really like Stafford. got a solid tight end in Higby. I think Cook is going to have a much bigger game than he did last week. And Cooper Cup maybe isn't having the season that you would have thought, but he's still a great receiver. Um, and DeMarcus Robinson's a solid, third string. But yeah, I think that the Vikings have the means to keep up with the Eagles and make it like a really tight one possession game. 30-27 at the end of the game is my prediction. It is obviously scary with how good Saquon is, and Jalen Hurts is, despite what people may say, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But sometimes it just feels
Running
like
back.
that's a Jalen Hurts.
Running back.
I feel like there have been times, including last game, where they rely a little too much on Saquon, and just outside of that, they can't really get any offense to go. Yeah, as mentioned earlier, they didn't have the best game offensively as a team last game, so I do think the Rams are capable. I think this could just be a great Matt Stafford game, a really amazing win for the Rams. I will say, this is probably, I know there's all the talk about the Ravens-Bills game. This might be the game I'm most excited to watch. So I actually think it could be really good.
I mean, all these games could honestly, I think, have the potential to be really good. Other than the Texans-Chiefs
I really
game.
don't
I don't know
think
if that's going to be.
Washington's going to be close, to be honest.
I think it could be.
Okay. On to the final game of the divisional round. It is the Baltimore Ravens going into Buffalo to play the Bills. And I'm very tempted to pick the Ravens. However, I'm going to go with Buffalo because it's in Buffalo. I think both teams are very capable offenses. Both have the two MVP front runners, and both have elite defenses as well. So it's going to be, probably the best game of the week. I'm expecting a big game from Josh Allen. I'm not gonna lie, I want to switch my team. It's that close, but I do think actually that the Ravens are going to win. The main factor being the duo of Lamar Jackson and Josh and Derrick Henry. I really don't think, I remember all the way back in one of our first episodes, and that was back when we were both doing a review for every game, and I remember talking about that Ravens game and talking about how I'm not sure how to stop that duo, Lamar and Derrick Henry. It just looked unstoppable then, and it still does now.
Guys, stop!
Months later,
Please!
is he killing you?
He keeps chasing me!
I think the Ravens are going to have a very tough game, or a tough time. The Bills, oh my gosh. I think the Bills are going to have a very tough time stopping Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And in my eyes, these two teams are neck and neck, really close teams. But even with it being in Buffalo, I honestly trust the Ravens more. Because the Bills, the quarterbacks are neck and neck. Derrick Henry's a better running back than James Cook. And honestly, I think the receivers and the tight ends are also better in Baltimore than the Bills. Just have no help, man. They got Amari Cooper to try and help. He sucks. So that's why I'm going to be picking the Ravens. Josh Allen doesn't have enough help. Shout out James Cook, but I trust the Ravens a lot more.
I am going the Ravens as well, and I'm not gonna lie. Even though I know that, the MVP is normally a regular season award, and it should be. I think that this game decides the MVP. The MVP.
I actually like that.
Yeah. If Josh Allen wins MVP. If Lamar wins MVP. I think that's fair. And I mean, yeah, obviously Buffalo, they're just so good, man. But the Ravens, with Derrick Henry, even though the Titans haven't been the most successful franchise ever, he did have a couple playoff runs with them. Obviously, got I think to an AFC Championship with them. I mean, yeah, he's got so much experience, much more experience than Dalvin Cook, which may matter in the long run. And just the Ravens, you know, have a bit more winning experience than the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, overall, give me the Ravens. I just think that the oh my God, James.
You live in. Oh,
Also a man that I think will be a difference maker for the Ravens if healthy is Zay Flowers. I assume he's going to play, not completely sure though. I mean, they did a good job without him anyways. Both teams, you know, they don't even really have standout wide receivers. I feel like Zay Flowers is a fine receiver, but he's not the best of the best. He's a pro bowler, but that ain't mean nothing.
hey, what if he taunts and costs them the game again?
That's fair. Didn't he bobble last year?
I'm pretty
Bobble
sure
and
he
catch.
did. He was.
But yeah, he's learned from that, obviously, and he's a better receiver for sure. They have better receiving threats. They're better everything, and I think for those reasons they'll win. But yeah, and Lamar's MVP. I think I had him as my MVP in the MVP video, so I still believe it. The mid-season awards video. Damn, that would have been ages. Oh my God. But yeah, that's it. You know, anything else you want to talk about?
Not really, you know. Yeah, not much has happened since the last episode.
Nothing about Browns. You know, I heard today sources that you might be interested in getting Sam Darnold. You specifically, not the Browns.
Loki, I personally as a champ, just because. But I'd rather him over Kirk Cousins. We got nothing to really lose at the quarterback position right now.
Other than you're a non-existent fan base.
A quick shout out to the 3 people who watched our last episode. Loved the support. Hey, the last show we put out got 226 so I think we had some likes, I had 4.
Shout out to those 4 likers or the 3 likers that weren't me, unless you were one of them.
I was definitely one of them.
Shout out to the 2 likers for that.
Shout out to you, Daniel.
Yes, sir. Obviously, we're excited for the years to come when we talk about the Bears and the Packers. You know, those are gonna get millions of views when we have them as shorts. You know, this is only the start of the rivalry, I think. Thank you guys for watching yet another video of NFL Nitro. We hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe if you made it this far into the video. You know, it was a very interesting week of football, another interesting week coming up. So get hyped and stay tuned for that. And without, first, is there anything you'd like to say?
Not really. Excited for some good games.
Well, with nothing else to say, without further ado, goodbye!
He said GG forfeit. Oh my.
Oh, hold on, we might have to stop the video.
I wish I could type so I could tell him we in casuals. Fucker.
For real, this is casual.
You think we're locked in? You don't want to see me locked in.
Yeah, for real, he's a champ.
Almost. You're a champ. You gotta lock in.
For real, I'm talking about the Broncos. I'm depressed right now.
Man, frick them Broncos. Oh my gosh, I thought I made it. Please go on. I kind of want to change
these
to
the
leave
same
and play some
guys?
other people. It is. I don't want to play these guys.
Man, frick this.
Leave, yeah.
Well, bro, he dunked on us and Koshi's out there.
Why is he asking us to forfeit like it matters? You're not going up the range.
That's true. What we ended up forfeiting.
I don't, we're gonna have to deal with our own football.
Yeah, Jonah Daniels, he's maybe off for a video. Baker Mayfield sucks, guys. I'll be back.
No,
I got freaking fricked.
it's the same guy. Get me out of here.
So guys, what are your thoughts on the Hatsune Miku 419? Is it a W?
We should do a video in the off season, ranking Fortnite Festival season.
Fortnite Festival season. In my opinion, I don't really get the hate between that one woman, the Spanish girl.
Carol G.
I thought Carol G was amazing.
But you gotta think about it this way: The Weeknd has the songs, it has, you know, the pedigree. But then The Weeknd is also swaggy as hell, and he's the character.
I've got to look at the aesthetics. Like, who had the best? Let's be real. Who had the best stage? Metallica by far. You were on fire.
That's
I mean,
fair.
it was the best.
The spoon, massive play. Oh man, like.
What is he doing?
I just
Brad,
was teleporting you.
this guy stinks. I
Damn,
feel like
get
they're a
it,
team
Corey.
that. Yeah.
He said Jack selling.
Oh.
I told him to shut up.
For real.
Give me the Los Angeles Rams.
I was low-key thinking about it, but like, I don't know if they can.
Don't
they
steal
could-
my pick.
I won't.
Give me the.
I think if Jalen Hurts plays like that one
Buffalo.
image of that one like tortilla with a mustache or goatee, I think that they could. The Zapatron.
Can I switch my pick?
No.
Oh, okay. Well.
Sorry. This guy typed.
Oh. Okay.
What do you
so
mean?
am
Can
I-
you switch your
can I go
pick?
to the
Hold on.
Ravens?
What do you mean? Can...
Because I started talking about this, but I think the Ravens are gonna win.
Well, you know, all I'm gonna say is, I know, and I'm gonna call you out, but you can edit it out. You have the power to edit it out.
I'll
you
put
can
in the
just
bloopers.
Start talking.
But like I.
I don't care. Both of them are. Like the Nick Dick guy, real quick, or Nick Bit. He whoa. He told the other guy to stop trying so hard or something, and then the other guy started bumping me for no reason. And anyways. Hold on, this guy said, okay, now you guys stop trying so hard. It's casual. We gotta have fun. Stop trying so hard.
I think they just suck.
Stop trying so hard, guys. I mean, yeah, he's got so much experience, much more experience than Dalvin Cook, which may matter in the long run. And just the Ravens, you know, have a bit more winning experience than the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, overall, give me the Ravens. I just think that oh my God, James.
You live in. Oh. That's crazy. I mean, that's fair. I get it. I understand.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook. I just don't know how he's gonna go
Dalvin
this
Cook
week.
barely
From his couch.
Is he even in the league? I don't even know.
He literally plays. He plays for the Vikings, doesn't he?
No, Aaron Jones does.
Or did
He
he?
used to. He got cut.
Oh,
He's like
right,
barely.
he
I
got
don't know
cut.
if it's
Wasn't he
the team.
on the Packers? Or was he?
He might. He might
I
have
thought
got
he
signed.
went
He'll-
to. I'm
probably
pretty
on-
sure he went to the
I think
Packers, but
on
now he's
Packers.
not on. My fault. I.
'Cause he
got
got cut
completely
and just no one picked him up, and then we found out he sucked. I
Yeah.
think he's a Chief. He's a Cowboy.
Oh,
Who did
that
the
makes.
Chiefs sign? The Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I think so. Samaji P Ryan actually. Go Bronco.
All the running backs, they're all jumping around. Every running back in the league, pretty much. Even the top running
Get here. Was I still in the middle of talking? I think I was.
I don't know. We spent like
Yeah,
the
I
last
said
few
something-
minutes just saying- You want to go back into a game?
Oh, I was I think. I mean we can.
recognize that. He's still in the game.
You should make this.
Did you just... He left the party! You should be able to join me.
You?
Yeah.
How do
At the
I
bottom.
join you?
You have how many hours roughly? Go to the bottom. Like where you'd kick me.
Man, I ain't never used the join thing. And I froze. Oh my god.
Maybe we'll just leave this.
Thank you guys so much for watching yet another. Wait, what are we called again?
NFL Nitro.